Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvester. Welcome to Sylvester Speaks English. Real English, real life. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever met somebody whose English just seemed effortless? Maybe they weren't a native speaker. Maybe they still made lots of mistakes. But somehow they spoke English naturally, comfortably, and confidently. Then maybe you looked at yourself and thought, I've been studying English for years. So why is speaking still so hard? If this is how you feel, you are definitely not alone. After teaching English for more than 20 years, I've met thousands of English learners. Some of them had incredible grammar. Some had amazing vocabularies. Some could understand almost everything that they read. But when it came time to speak, they froze. Not because they weren't smart, not because they were lazy, and definitely not because they were too old. The problem was much simpler. They were practicing English the wrong way. Today, I'd like to teach you the 5 biggest reasons why so many English learners struggle to speak. And more importantly, I'll show you what fluent English speakers do differently. Let's get started. Number 1, you're studying English instead of using English. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see. Let me ask you another question. How much time did you spend studying English yesterday? Maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe even longer. Now, let me ask you a different question. How many minutes did you speak English yesterday? Not studying, not reading, and not watching YouTube. Actually speaking. For many learners, that answer is almost 0. And that's completely understandable. Speaking feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward, it feels risky. So instead, we study. We read another grammar lesson. We memorize another list of vocabulary words. We watch another English video. We feel productive. But we're not actually practicing the skill that we want to improve. Think about learning to play the piano. You could watch hundreds of piano videos. You could read books about music. You could memorize every note on the keyboard. But until your fingers actually touch the keys, you're not learning to play the piano. English works the exact same way. Language isn't just knowledge, it's a skill. And skills develop through practice. I remember one student from several years ago. His grammar was excellent, honestly, better than many native speakers. His vocabulary was incredible too. But one day I asked him a very simple question. How was your weekend? He looked at me, he smiled, paused for almost 10 seconds, then he quietly said, "Good." That wasn't because he didn't know English. He knew plenty of English. The problem was that he had almost no speaking experience. He had spent many years studying English, but no time actually using it. And honestly, I see this all the time. So here's my advice. Stop waiting for the perfect opportunity to speak English. Create one. Read something out loud. Describe what you're doing while you're cooking. Talk to yourself while you are driving. Record your voice. Shadow YouTube videos. Do something that forces you to speak English, even if it's only for 10 minutes, because speaking English is how you learn to speak English. Not studying, speaking. Number 2, you're translating everything. This is something I see almost every single day. And if you're doing this, you're normal. Don't worry. Almost every English learner starts this way. Here's what usually happens. Someone asks you a simple question. What did you do this weekend? Your brain immediately switches to your native language. You create the answer, then you translate it into English, then you check the grammar, then you wonder if your vocabulary is correct, then you worry about your pronunciation, and finally, you answer. The problem is, real conversations don't wait for all of that. While you're translating, the conversation has already moved on. I remember teaching one student who always said, "I know what I want to say. I just can't say it." Sound familiar? One day I asked him, "What are you thinking about right now?" He laughed and said, "I'm trying to translate." That was the problem. Not his English, his translation habits. So instead of translating, start thinking directly in English. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suddenly telling you to think about politics or philosophy in English. Start with tiny thoughts. When you wake up, "I'm still tired." When you're making coffee, "This smells good." When you're walking outside, "It's really hot today." When your phone rings, "I'll call them back later." Tiny thoughts, simple English. The goal isn't perfect English. The goal is speed. You want your brain to connect ideas directly to English without taking a detour through your native language. The more you do this, the less you'll translate. And one day, you'll notice something amazing. English starts coming to you automatically, not because you memorize more vocabulary, but because your brain finally stopped translating everything. That's a huge step toward fluency. Number 3, you're afraid of making mistakes. Let's be honest, this isn't really an English problem. It's a confidence problem. Nobody likes making mistakes, especially in front of other people. We worry about sounding silly. We worry that people will laugh. We worry that they'll think our English isn't good enough. But let me tell you something I have learned after more than 20 years of teaching. I've never met a fluent English speaker who didn't make thousands of mistakes. Not one. Every single fluent speaker you admire made mistake after mistake after mistake. The difference is they didn't stop. One of my students used to apologize every time she made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Finally, I told her, please stop apologizing. If you're making mistakes, it means you're speaking. And if you're speaking, you're improving. A few months later, she was having conversations she never thought were possible. Not because her grammar suddenly became perfect, but because she stopped letting mistakes control her. Think about learning to drive. The first time behind the wheel, everything feels overwhelming. The mirrors, the steering wheel, the pedals, the traffic. You're thinking about every tiny movement. But after enough practice, you stop thinking about driving. You just drive. Speaking English works the exact same way. The more you practice, the less you think. And that's what fluency really feels like. So don't be afraid of mistakes. Be afraid of never speaking at all, because mistakes disappear. Silence doesn't. Number 4, you're learning words instead of phrases. This is one of the biggest differences between someone who sounds like a student and someone who sounds natural. Many English learners collect vocabulary. They keep a long list of words. Every week they memorize 50 words or even 100 new words. But here's the problem. Native speakers don't communicate one word at a time. We communicate in phrases. For example, don't just learn the word decision. Learn the phrase, make a decision. Don't just learn mistake. Learn, make a mistake. Don't just learn effort. Learn, make an effort. Or think about phrases like, I can't figure it out. I'm looking forward to it. I'm getting used to it. I ran out of time. These are expressions that native speakers use every single day. And here's something interesting. When I listen to advanced English learners, I don't notice how many vocabulary words they know. I notice how naturally they connect words together. That's what makes someone sound fluent. So the next time you learn a new word, don't stop there. Ask yourself, what words usually go with this? That is one simple habit that will make your English sound much more natural. Number 5, you're waiting until you're ready. This might be the biggest mistake of all. So many people tell themselves, I'll start speaking when my grammar is better. I'll start speaking when I know more vocabulary. I'll start speaking when I feel more confident. But here's the truth. Almost nobody ever feels ready. Not completely. After teaching English for more than 20 years, I've seen students of every age. Teenagers, university students, business professionals, retired learners. The ones who became fluent weren't always the smartest. They weren't always the fastest learners. They were simply the ones who started before they felt ready. They spoke when they felt nervous. They spoke when they made mistakes. They spoke when they weren't confident. And every conversation made the next one a little bit easier. That's how confidence is built. Not before you speak, because you speak. I want you to remember one sentence. Fluency is not something you achieve. It's something you build. One conversation at a time. One mistake at a time. One day at a time. So let's review. If you want to become a better English speaker, stop studying English all the time and start using it. Stop translating every sentence and start thinking in English. Stop fearing mistakes and start learning from them. Stop memorizing individual words and start learning phrases. And finally, stop waiting until you feel ready. Start today. Even if your English isn't perfect, because perfect English isn't the goal. Communication is. After 20 years of teaching English, I've learned one lesson that never changes. The students who succeed aren't the ones with the highest IQ. They aren't the ones with the biggest vocabulary. They're the ones who refuse to give up. So if you've been studying English for years and you still feel frustrated, don't stop. You may be much closer than you think. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 5 habits do you think is holding you back the most? Leave a comment below. I read as many comments as I can, and I'd love to hear your story. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more practical English lessons that you could actually use in real life. I'm Sylvester, real English, real life, and I'll see you in the next lesson.